We now move on to family, and today we are talking about parenting. How this whole pandemic, this whole situation we are in has affected how we parent on a norm, and just trying to adjust to the new reality that we are in this day and time. And of course, this is in light of the fact that all learning institutions have had to be closed, and it was such a sudden move, and this meant that all children have to stay home. And this time there's no shipping them to Shago, there's no taking them out to just keep them busy. They have to stay at home. So how is parenting being affected? That is a discussion that we want to have, and to help us with this discussion, we have with us in studio this morning Susan Maua, who is the acting manager in charge of public education and advocacy working with NACADA. Karibu sana, Susan.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for making time.
Thank you.
All right, I'm sure your organization is on social media. Maybe we could start with the social media handles so that our viewers can also interact with you on that platform.
Yeah. So our social media handle is @NACADA Kenya.
All right.
Yeah.
So any questions that you feel you cannot want to send them here, again, redirect to them on the social media platforms. But our communication platform ever remain open. Hashtag is Good Morning Kenya at KBC Channel 1, at Jane Mamboy, and 20154 is how you can reach us via Twitter, and of course our SMS line respectively. Now, talking about parenting.
Yeah.
First of all, what are your thoughts about parenting in this day and time?
There's a lot of digital parenting.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of things have changed, particularly the fact that parents are busy out of the homes.
And arguably so, they are.
Out of the homes for most of the time.
Yeah.
Busy working towards economic, trying to get something, put food on the table, take children to school and so on. So that means that basically this parenting has been left to other people. The nannies at home may know more about the children than the parents themselves.
Ooh.
Yeah. But now we find ourselves in this situation where we need to actually reconnect, because now the nanny also needs to take care of her own. And the mother, the father, and other significant others are in the home. Yeah. So that means that really we must get back to the basics.
So are we in some sort of crisis when it comes to parenting? Because for most of the times, we always have excuses because of all these other variables. Oh, I have to work. My hours do not allow me to do so. You're in school. When I get home, I don't want to keep you up late because of school. All these other variables have been put on the side. Are we in a crisis when it comes to parenting?
I would say so.
Yeah.
I would say that we're actually in a crisis because, when we talk about socialization, the first person to do socialization is a parent.
It's a parent.
Yes. So if you are not available, then who then is taking care of your child? Particularly if you want to be out most of the time, including, and you've seen even mothers, young mothers, they are not able to feed their children. So if they are home, they are hiding somewhere so that the nanny can actually feed the child.
Yeah.
So that means that connection is lost.
Yeah.
And if you are busy and not taking care of your children, then it means that the gap between the parents and the children continue to widen. Yeah. So basically, I've had people talk about, oh no, why are they allowing children to go home for 2 whole months? What will we do with the 2 months? Yeah. So there's always a challenge. If you as a parent, you have 1 child or 2 children, yeah, and you're asking yourself, what will I do with them for 2 months?
Yeah.
And that is your child. Yeah. And then now that we suddenly find ourselves, you see, there was no warning with the COVID-19, there was no warning. So suddenly there is this announcement that schools need to close. You need to find yourself at home. So then what do? And I had a parent mention, oh my, they've only been here for 1 day and I'm already tired.
Exhausted.
What am I going to do with them?
And they're going to be home indefinitely.
They are home indefinitely.
Now, yes, still picking up from that point, now comes this whole aspect of positive parenting, because in as much as we are in this crisis, we still choose to look at the light of the end of the tunnel. Yeah. What do we mean when we talk about positive parenting?
Yeah. It's interesting that parenting is a very demanding job.
Yes.
And
it's a full-time job.
It's a full-time job, actually, on top of the other full-time jobs that you're doing.
Imagine
So
that.
now that it is a full-time job, it means that one way or the other, you must be parenting. Either the way you were parented, Or if you feel that the way you are parented was bad enough, then probably you want to change the way you are doing the parenting. So when we talk about positive parenting, is actually making better what we are doing now. Because it's not like people have not been doing it. They have. They just need to do it in a warm and caring environment.
Yes.
So that is what now positive parenting is about. You know, when you hear people comment about, oh, what are we going to do with them? And the children also get to hear that. Sometimes we make comments as parents, oh no, I don't know whose child this is. Where did this one come from? You know, already you are giving that negative kind of aspect. And therefore the child also gets the negative emotion and say, even my parents don't love me. Yeah. So now positive parenting is about focusing on the basics with warmth and care.
With warmth and care.
Yeah.
In as much as you have been thrown in the deep end, as some might say, it's just about trying to find good ways to go about parenting. Now, parenting, comes this as you have mentioned. Most of us, you borrow your parenting style from how you were brought up, or against how you were brought up. It's either or. But of course, during this time and space we are in, it's very uncertain, and you find most parents resort to giving things to their children, and especially gadgets, to keep them busy, keep them occupied. And while they are on these gadgets, it is such an uncontrolled environment, and they are exposed to so much. Now, I want us to look at a few aspects that contribute to this positive parenting aspect that we're talking about. And let's just start with communication. During this time, as you have mentioned, most parents are wondering, okay, what will I do with this child? But when it comes to communicating with our children, what more do you feel we need to do to stop talking to them and at them and start talking with them?
All right. So the first thing is listening first. Yeah. So do you ever get to listen? That's a question that you need to ask yourself.
Yeah.
Do you listen to your child? Because if you are talking at them, it means that you've already made up your mind about the things. And when you talk at them, you are likely to be focusing on the negative, don't do this, don't do that.
You've already put up a wall.
Yes, yeah. So then the child just sits there and looks at you and wonders, no, when is she going to finish so that we can move on to other things?
I can go do other things.
Yes, I can go and do other things. So that communication is very key, and the first thing to do is to listen first.
And why is it a problem when we talk to our children and at our children? How is it creating a problem as opposed to, you're the parent, you're laying down the rules and what you say goes because I said so. How is this way of parenting a problem?
You've just mentioned laying down the rules.
Yeah.
When you lay down the rules, why don't you lay down the rules together with the child? Because like right now, suddenly you find yourself at home with the children. So if you continue the way you have been doing, because for a good proportion of the time you don't stay with the children, they are in school. The school creates routine in the school setting. That is why the children know we get to school at this time, then we do this and we do that, then there is break and so on. Now, you need to provide the same kind of routine in your home environment.
Yes.
So that the children get to know what is it that we need to be doing? What are we going to be doing? Yeah.
And ultimately, you just open that channel of communication that way.
Yes, yeah.
Now, you've just mentioned listening as being one of the ways through which you can be able to build on this communication with your children. But then again, how we listen is also another factor. We don't listen actively per se, especially to toddlers.
It's more of hearing.
We just hear what they're saying and we just respond to them as opposed to understanding what they are saying. How do we build on listening to our children during this time? Because they're going to be home for a while.
Oh, yeah.
And they're going to be talking. So how do we work on our listening skills with our children?
So the other thing that we need to talk about is quality time. And that means giving each child at least 10 to 15 minutes of your time. And now that we have plenty of time.
And this is on a daily?
Yes, on a daily basis if you can afford. Yeah. Because even if you had 3 children, that's like 30 minutes. So it means that you can actually afford that.
Yeah.
So if you're going to be listening, it means that you're getting into the child's space. The 15 minutes is not where they are hearing you do all the blah, blah, blah. No. It's the 10 minutes of the child
Yes.
talking to you.
And actively listening.
And for you, you just listen. And you know, even your body language suggests, yeah,
It matters.
that you're actually listening. Because I remember my mother would, you know, like I said, you parent the way you are parented.
Yes.
And I remember my mother, we were quite a number of us, 8 of us. You know, she would look at you and you would read a whole paragraph.
Just from the face.
Wait until the visitors leave and you will see. You know, that's a whole paragraph. And for sure you will see.
Yes.
Yeah. So you see, then if you're going to listen, then it means that even your body language should be showing that.
It should be showing what you're saying.
And you're not listening to answer back. You just let the child just talk about what they want to do. Yeah.
So show interest.
Yes.
As you try to listen to your child. It is also another way that builds on how you communicate with your child during this time.
And not distracted listening.
Not distracted listening.
Because you see, one key distractor we have is the phone.
Yes.
I said, okay. But you're also scrolling on your phone. That's already showing that you really don't care about what I'm talking about.
All right.
So it's just a one-on-one that you're actually able to just pay attention to that child. Remember,
we're talking about positive parenting during this time that we are in. We are forced to stay at home. Our children are at home for an defined period of time. All schools have closed and parenting seems to be at a crisis. So how do you best go about parenting your children during this time to make the most of it? You know, it's only been a couple of weeks and some parents are saying, I cannot stand these children. Whose are they? So this is all about helping you as a parent build on that and take advantage of this time to be able to help you and your children build your relationship. We're going to be having Fred Abok joining us in a bit. But before we get to cross over to the other side of the studio, we've talked about communication and listening. Now, when it comes to the fact that our children are at home now. They were used to a certain routine at school. And now they have been put at home and there's no routine in place to help them know how to manage their time and their day, also resulting to another crisis. Is it important in the first place to have some sense of routine at home?
Very, very important. You must provide that routine. And this is not a time where you sit down as a parent and say, these are the things that we are going to do. Number one, you will wake up at this time. Number two, you'll do this. Let it be a collaboration with the children, irrespective of what age, whether they are toddlers or they are teenagers or university age, college-going students, or even the ones that are basically at home. Let's sit down as a family, create family time, and just have a discussion on what they will be doing.
But now when it comes to putting this schedule or this form of structure in place, you find that most parents are trying to replicate what was in school. You know, you get to school at this time, so unakwanga umeamka by saa moja, you are in school at 8, utaamka hiyo saa moja. Then by 8 you do this, then you do this, then you do this. You find that they're trying to replicate what they do in school at home. And ultimately it becomes more destructive than, you know, an assistive effort. Why is this a problem, trying to replicate what is in school at home?
You're not a teacher.
You're not a teacher to start with.
You're not a teacher in the sense of academic learning. So there is more to life than academic learning.
Yes.
So that is why the kind of routine that you're going to have at home, you know, have some bits of learning, because anyway, they must have been sent home with the homework. But of course, you know, the kind of homework they were given. In fact, in some case I heard, they were told to make notes. So you're basically transferring from the textbook into the exercise book. Now that's not the kind of routine you're talking about. Here you want to build skills. You want to build skills so that there is a decision making. That is why you are having a collaborative effort in terms of developing this routine.
Yes.
And again, that will ensure that the children actually adhere to it. Then you also discuss about the consequences. So it's more a lax routine, but not focusing on academic work
only.
Yeah.
So parents, stop replicating what they do in school at home, because first of all, you will not be able to keep up as a parent. You cannot be able to keep up. And they are at home, they have more free time. So find other creative ways to keep them occupied as opposed to just books, 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 books.
Yeah.
And also want to bring in a book at this point. Karibu sana Fred Abok.
Thank you.
Thank you for getting here in good time. But we're just looking at, this whole aspect of positive parenting. And I want to start with you as a parent, trying to find a structure for your children during this time when they are at home. How have you gone about it?
Yeah, Jen, thank you so much for having me one more time this morning. For parenting to be effective,
Yes.
there has to be a tripartite approach towards it, in that it needs to be visionful, it needs to be guided, and it needs to be protective. In that the greatest disadvantage is when we try to do parenting based on fear of what we do want our children to be. And so we defend them instead of giving them the opportunity to be themselves in a guided environment that they can actually be able to exemplify and bring out who they are in life. So it is essential to, number one, understand where you want your children to go to. Because where you see their future as depend on how you engage yourself with them. And how you engage yourself with them will depend on what do you expose them to and what do you protect them from. And this will actually be able to guide them on an environment that they can actually be able to grow freely, but within a structure that they both understand themselves, but also they understand the future and the places where they're headed to.
So are you of the opinion that, this structure should be also collaborative effort between the child and the parent, as opposed to the parent setting down this routine of doing things throughout the day?
Definitely. Children are human beings and they are not robots. And so they got to understand why. Because even when we are chasing our children, it's important to let them understand the reason behind it. Because when we do not give them the reason, they will think that we are doing it because we hate them. But when they get to understand why we are chasing them, or why it is important to watch a certain channel and not watch the other channel, they understand the consequences. So they proact towards it, not react towards it.
All right. Yeah. Now, let's talk about discipline. Another aspect that contributes to positive parenting, and especially now during this space and time. Remember, this conversation is mostly about where we are now as a nation, and more specifically focusing on parenting. Discipline. We find ourselves as parents, and I'm guilty of this. As a parent, I am guilty of this. I have found myself sometimes yelling at my child because they have done this or did that, and at times even go to a point of smacking them. And we are now emphasizing on that Bible verse, spare the rod, spoil the child. We are using it heavily during this time. But when it comes to discipline and having age-based discipline, what is it? First of all, are we going wrong? Are we going about it the wrong way when it comes to just yelling, threatening, and smacking as the only approach that we choose to use?
How well is it working for you when you threaten and yell and do all that?
They all work because they just retreat.
Okay, yeah. So as Bok was saying, you actually yell at them. They actually will be reactive rather than proactive towards it. So discipline is not punishment, because kind of what you're doing is punishment.
Yeah.
And usually when you yell, you'll find that when you're angry, then now even your thinking is clouded.
Yes.
Yes.
True.
And if you talk when you're angry, then you're going to make the best speech that you will regret thereafter. Yeah. So the best thing is actually to stay calm. And that is why we are saying you need to actually provide the structure. So that then you're also talking about consequences. It's not just free that people will just do what they want. That is why they say these are some of the things that we are going to do and what are the consequences.
Okay.
So if there are consequences, then you need to follow with them. And remember that the idea is to correct the behavior. Yeah. You also want to instill some form of way of responding to issues in a proactive way, not in a reactive way. Yeah.
Abok, I'd like to also get your thoughts on the same. This whole approach of yelling at them, threatening them, and smacking them. Do you think it will work, especially now that they are at home for an extended and defined period of time when it comes to discipline issues?
Jen, reactive in a manner that causes fear is the greatest disaster that we are facing on today, because it's actually just expressing that we are actually endangered with fear and, you know, and environmental consequences, that we cannot be able to face facts on the ground. You know, when a parent reacts to a child, which means that there is something that the child has done that he either fears or the unknown, or he does not get to understand the consequences, so he tries on to reprieve the child into an environment that they cause them not to do it again. But, you know, in this case, they do not really explain to the child what are the consequences of doing that particular thing. Now, communication is very vital in a family, and especially when you're bringing children up. And parents sometimes devoid of this, that they feel that children don't understand. They are not into communication. They are into instructions. Before instruction, there got to be a communication. And effective, proper communication, and also timely, devoids any kind of an action that can threaten an environment of communal understanding. So it is of essence to put our children down and get to explain to them, reason with them, and help them understand. Because you know what, people don't just do mistake. People do mistake because they find themselves that is the way out. And it's important to explain to them that there is another way out, that they can be able to get out of the quagmire and be able to be in a position or the right on right senses without necessarily doing that mistake. So it is important to communicate with our children on age appropriate, but also on a timely important elements that will help them, guide them to where they are headed.
So maybe what suggestions would you put forth when it comes to alternatives to, you know, instill discipline in our children? Because sometimes these children test us. Wana tujaribu. But you don't want to resort to violence. So what alternatives would you suggest that are, you know, age appropriate and effective in towards returning them to the good ways?
Yeah, you know, when you talk of testing the limits, first of all, you need to establish the limits first. So when you use the examples, you know, what you said, or yelling at them, or, oh, nitakuchapa, but you never follow through. First of all, it's even against the children's rights to be doing that. So if you always talk about something that you never follow through, they know, mom just says that.
Empty threats.
Yeah, empty threats. Oh, we are used to that, you know. You know, what else? What else? Yeah. So that means that you actually, depending on the age of the child, because if they are teenagers, what are they going to do? They are going to rebel. Yeah. They're just likely to do something that will actually make you tongue-tied. Yeah. Including probably even using drugs just to see what you're going to do. You know, being rude, doing all kinds of things, just to test those limits. So it means that if it is a younger child, then you must be talking about what kind of consequences. And later on, we are going to talk about, in our future discussions, we'll also be talking about how do you have these conversations with the various age groups. Because the way you are going to treat 12-year-old is going to be different from the way you're going to treat a 3-year-old. So you see things like timeout, like now, at this point, we are doing a lot of games, you know, give the child so that they can shut up, just give them the games. But you see, you don't know what else they are accessing in the internet and so on. So supposing you wanted to give them an opportunity to use that phone so that they can play one game, So at the point when you're setting routines, then you're saying that what are the consequences? You only have 30 minutes of playing a game. Now, if you go against that, then what will we do? You lose your opportunity to do that today. So then the child gets to know that there are consequences. So again, it will depend on what age that you are talking about.
So maybe the withdrawal of certain privileges could be more effective as opposed to threatening, smacking, or yelling.
Oh, it doesn't work. It only worked in our time. Because you see, my mother, using her own eyes, she'll say, wait, you will see, and for sure you saw. And that is why you will not repeat the same thing. So you see, when there are no consequences, then the behavior, you know, whatever you are trying to get them away from, it's going to persist. But if you actually remember that even the rules that you are making was collaborative. so that they know that these are the things that will happen.
These are the rules of engagement.
So by the time you get to the point of discipline or bringing out the consequence, you know, you are even likely to ask them, so what did we say will happen if you do this? Then they are likely to tell you, okay, it's time.
Do as you need to.
Yes.
Abok,
Yeah.
when it comes to alternatives, and especially now dealing with teenagers
Yes.
and our university youth category,
Yes.
what alternatives do you think work best when it comes to discipline in a way that, you know, you still remain the parent and a friend to your child?
Yeah. Great. You know, Jen, exposure has actually really put us in a very thin line when it comes to parenting.
Yeah.
And the word consensus is not an option, but it is the norm. And that people want to be in an environment that they understand, but they are also understood. So it is essential that when we are especially parenting teens who are exposed and have actually, you know, are in campus,
Yeah.
it's important to draft the rules of the game together. When we draft the rules of the game together, they understand that they are part of the game and it is not something that is out to fix them. Now, this takes confidence and deliberate effort to be able for a parent to sit down with a young person and get to understand, how do we relate? You know, how would you like, you know? And you know, sometimes, you know, they could actually be exposed, but they are not exposed to the nature, to the environment of the future enthronement that you would like them to be. And so they are limited in one way. So it is also important to guide them to what guarantees, by some of them sharing with them what has not worked for you as a parent. Because, you know, when a teen wants to come back home at 10 o'clock at night, what are the consequences of it? You know,
the curfew 7
you
p.m.
know, and you know, we talked the other day with my daughter about waking up at 9 o'clock because it's coronavirus. And you know, though it is, guys are not going to school, but when you wake up when the sun is already up, it shows that you are irresponsible. It shows that, you know what, you are actually not adaptive onto the society, because the society that we are in is about the early risers. You know, there's a proverb that says that the early bird catches the worm. Yeah. And so there are potential that you will actually find that people have cut them from you. And so when we are crafting on the rules of the game, we are actually putting them in a place that they are accountable to what they have actually been part of. And also that they are responsible for what they have not been able to do right. So you know what, when we will be disciplining them, we will be challenging them right on the rules that they were part of crafting.
All right, so at the end of the day, when it comes to issues to do with discipline, it's about teaching, not punishing.
Yeah.
So when you find yourself in that situation, pull out that card, and your child will do the needful from then, after having understood the consequences of what you two agreed on. Now, also during this time, you know, our children are exposed to so much. The internet, you know, we've been seeing service providers saying, you know, we are doubling the internet speeds, we are lowering the rates. So internet is not a problem. But also with the internet comes a lot. And our children are seeing so much on the online platform, because sometimes we may not be paying attention at what they are watching. And now this brings up this whole issue of alcohol and drugs. So many adverts are circulating on social media, and we cannot control them per se. And also you find at home, parents might be using, you know, self-care. Tunaitanga self-care to just wind down, you know, a glass of wine here and there, a glass of this and that. When it comes to how we interact with some of these substances, of what consequence do you think it is to the children when we do it in front of them?
Yeah, one of what, as you've mentioned, the internet, you know, there are many forms of addiction.
Yeah.
So when you talk of alcohol and drug use, which eventually becomes abuse, that is one form of addiction. But you see, there is also internet addiction. So if you're going to expose them to, you know, 24/7 internet access, and as you've mentioned, you are not able to control. There are no parental controls. If you go to the internet, whether it is on Facebook, it is on Instagram, it is on Twitter, you know, this Jumia will be, you know, they keep popping up and they tell you, oh, we are actually even making deliveries.
Yeah.
You know, we are making deliveries. The ABS is busy, and so there are all these things that are talking to you. And if you click on any of those, you know, and you want to buy, you'll actually do it. There is no way of even verifying the age. Yeah. So it means that there is that access, that then your child is exposed, not just to internet addiction, not just to, remember there's also pornography.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all other forms of addiction. And don't forget there is also cyberbullying. Your child can be getting into a situation where then they find themselves talking to somebody that is actually a danger to them. So now, back to alcohol use.
Actually,
now,
before I actually get to the bit of alcohol,
Yes.
maybe Abok, you could also just jump in there on the whole issue of uncontrolled internet time.
Yeah, Jen, we talked about discipline earlier, and I think something that I would like to relay across is that children are very keen on following what the parents do, rather than what the parents say. Yeah. And so when it comes to discipline, and especially the issues of internet, children do really try to be like parents. If you spend a lot of time on your phone and on your internet, and then you want to restrict your child onto a 30 minutes game on the internet, they don't necessarily understand why you are limiting them, and yet you have an uncontrolled access to the internet. So I said in this show before that banks do not show their staff how fake money looks like. But they expose them to the real money until when they see the fake one, they say this one does not belong to us. Children will actually align themselves to the discipline that they have seen their parents exemplifying, that when they do not see their parents do, they say this is not part of our family. So we cannot talk about discipline when we actually minus the parents on exemplifying that particular discipline. So it starts from the top, flowing on down. And so when we want to restrict the time, let us also be disciplined on the time that we spend on our internet and all those, and then the things will flow.
That's a challenge to parents. Baby see, baby do.
Yes.
So don't be the first one to say, toka kwa internet, and you are there just the whole day scrolling through, and you are there denying them that same opportunity because they won't see the reasons as to why you deny them, and yet you spend so much time on it.
And something, Jane, let me also put it across like this. I don't know whether technology is a surprise to Africans, but I think we have been in technology for a while. Let us not even talk about the internet. TV, you know, here is a case whereby you get into an African house, and the first thing that they switch on is the TV, as if you came to their houses to watch the TV. You know, it's important for people to get to understand that attention is needed, not the things that they have. Someone is talking to you and is pulling up their phone, as if you are interested in seeing their phone, or you're interested in their attention. So we got to wake up to the normalcy and get to understand that these technologies are to help us to communicate, not to show off who we are.
Pastor Bok drops mic. Now let's come back to the last element, you know, or aspect of, you know, positive parenting, and this is, you know, this access to alcohol and other drugs, substances. The fact that some of these things are readily at home, and we as parents consume them in the presence of our children, is that a problem?
It's a huge problem.
Yeah.
And we can say this, why as NACADA we even started talking about parents and parenting is from our studies. In 2016, we did a study for secondary schools. And then in 2018, we did another study for primary schools. And that is because from the secondary school survey, it was actually showing that alcohol use and drug use actually begins much earlier. Yeah. So the focus cannot be on the secondary schools, but we need to start much earlier, and that is at the primary school level. So what are some of the things that came out? The home environment is a risk factor because alcohol is available in the home. Yes. So you know that fridge that is usually in the living room?
There are a few bottles in there.
Yes, it just keeps cold drinks for visitors. And I don't know if you've visited people and they say, oh, what can we serve you? And they want to give you some alcohol, and you tell them, no, I'm just okay, I don't take alcohol. Oh, no, you know, you can take woodpecker, you know, this is just fruit. It's made from fruit. Yeah. So you see, that way you are already demonstrating positive attitudes towards alcohol use.
Conditioning.
Yeah. Yes, you are already demonstrating to your children. Remember, It's about what they see, not what you say. And then, you know, on our TVs also, there are other things that are also calling us to this. You know, if there is an advert about Imara kama Simba, or there is Teremusha na Marafiki, and then you have Teremusha na Marafiki nyumbani,
In the house.
then the child will be, ata mimi ninataka Teremusha na Marafiki.
Yeah.
So you see, it's more of what you do than what you say.
Yeah.
So if you're going to have it at home, then it means that the message that the children are getting is endorsement. You have already endorsed that
It's okay.
alcohol use is okay. And then again, not just for the children, but even you as a parent right now, we are already having a lot of depressing information every day. In fact, in the evening, we look towards Ministry of Health giving us an update. Yeah. So if they give you the update, they say, oh, we have new cases and so on. There is a lot of fear and anxiety.
Yes.
So that means that we are receiving a lot of negative information, which means eventually it also depresses
Takes a
our
toll.
own.
Yeah.
It takes a toll and it depresses our own emotions. Then you add alcohol, which is a depressant. So how far down do you want to go? And you know, even when we talk of issues of addiction, it's something that happens slowly. You don't begin today and become addicted tomorrow.
Yeah.
So before you know it, even as a parent, progressively you are sinking into this feeling.
All right.
Yeah. And then the children are going to do exactly the same,
They're going
because
to follow that same
if
path.
this is how people relax, if this is how people deal with the negative emotions, even me, I will do exactly that.
Coping mechanisms.
Oh, yes.
Now, as we bring the conversation to a close, Abok, when it comes to this availability of alcohol and other drugs at home, how do you think parents can go about, just in as much as they want to indulge, and, it's a coping mechanism for some parents, which I'm not advocating for, how can they be able to shield their children from the harmful effects of alcohol and drugs, especially during this time? Very briefly.
Great. Jen, in this, please allow me to delve a little bit on the scripture. First Timothy,
Briefly.
2 Timothy 1:7, the Bible says, for God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and sound mind. Why are we indulging on alcohol? It's because there are things that we fear to be able to encounter. There are unknown fears. And why? Because we are trying to avoid the stress that we cannot be able to control. We are trying to avoid circumstances or scenarios that we cannot be able to handle. But you see what? The Bible says God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power. Power to encounter the challenges of life. Power to attack situations and issues. Power to be able to control things and to be confident. And you know what? He has given us love, the ability to be able to express ourselves, to be accepted regardless of who we are. People get into drinking because they want to be relevant.
Yeah.
They want to look like. They want to be on a status. But you know what? We do not get our status by what we consume. We get our status by who we are. And so it is important to teach our children, but also to remind ourselves as parents that our ability to be who we are does not come about by the fact of what we are consuming, but on who we are. Sound mind is the balance, the ability to control the stress and also be who you are. Today's society, we have allowed people to be so stressful. I was getting an information from a doctor that the rich does not go to hospital because of coronavirus, but because they are going to hospital to be able to take painkillers because of the business that are going down, that are closed. And so, you know what, they are receiving more rich people than they are receiving coronavirus patients. Why? Because people cannot be able to have a balanced mindset. And so, you know what, they get into alcohol so that they can be able to cheat to themselves. One thing I can tell you is that if you are fearful of the unknown, even after the alcohol, you will still be in fear. What we need to is to encourage ourselves and have a balanced mindset.
All right.
Yes.
Have a balanced mindset. And I think we're going to put a cap on this discussion at that point. When it comes to parenting, it is about how you best go. It's about how you go about it. Your children will emulate what you do, not what you say. So try and be very careful as you try and open that channel of communication with your children and all these different other aspects that ultimately build to positive parenting during this time that we are quarantined and we have to stay at home and spend time with our children. Look at this as a building opportunity. Build those blocks with your children when it comes to the relationship. Don't look at it as a time where you are stuck with the children. All right. Perspective matters. So change your mind about that. Now we want to bring a closer to this discussion. We have been speaking with Susan Maua, who is the acting manager in charge of public education and advocacy at Nakanda. And of course, we also have Fred Abok on the other side of studio. He's a mentor, a motivational speaker, and a minister of the gospel, sharing with us their thoughts when it comes to positive parenting.